Hey everyone, Eric here from Mask Audio Electronics. In this video, we're checking out the Part Garden Germanium. The Part Garden Germanium is a follow-up to the initial collaboration between Mask Audio and Ian from Collector Emitter, which was the Part Garden. Now, the Part Garden was more of a fuzz that could kind of do overdrive, and it was designed around the idea of pushing one fuzz into another fuzz, while the Part Garden Germanium is actually kind of flip-flopped around. Things have been redesigned, and it's actually an overdrive, which can kind of get into the fuzz territory. So it's a much lower gain, a much tamer sound, kind of. It's got a lot of different sounds in it, and it's a really great and versatile overall drive pedal. Again, anything from overdrive all the way up to fuzz. Before we jump into the pedal, let's go over the signal chain that I'm using. I'm using my Partscaster Concierge Neptune. This is going into the Part Garden Germanium, and then the Part Garden Germanium is going out to the Boss Katana, and it's set pretty clean like this. So if we look at the pedal, the controls are pretty simple. We have a 3, 2, and 1 control up on the top level. We have a texture knob, and we have a yaw toggle. So let's go over the top row, the 3, 2, 1. 3 is the very end of the circuit, so that's going to be our output gain. So if we turn it down, we're not going to get anything. As we turn it up, we're going to get a louder and louder sound. And from 3, I want to flip over to the 1 control. And this is essentially a pre-gain. So what we're doing is we're setting the volume level of our instrument going into the rest of the pedal. So if we turn it down, we're going to get, a quieter sound going into the pedal. And this pedal is very reactive to your playing. It's very dynamic. So when we turn this control down, we're going to get an overall cleaner sound. And we can actually turn it all the way down and still get signal. Albeit very low. So I'm gonna go up from that about 25%, what we had before. Now we've gone up to about 50%. You're gonna hear a lot stronger signal going into the pedal. You can hear that the signal now has a little bit of texture, a little bit of grit to it, and that's because we've hit the threshold of where the signal's starting to get loud enough to where the pedal is clipping it. So let's go ahead and keep going up from here. And right here, we're into overdrive territory, and actually a pretty thick sounding overdrive. And from here, we're only going to push our signal harder to drive it even more. So let's go ahead and play a little bit, then I'll turn the control all the way up to maximum. So we're getting a lot of breakup And still, it's very smooth sounding. It's not totally fuzzy. It's a nice overdrive sound, and that's what Part Garden GE really excels at, is surprisingly low gain for Mask Audio electronics. You know, we have this nice mild overdrive sound, but we can, as you'll hear in a little bit, we can get pretty fuzzy with it. So now I want to talk about the 2 knob right here, and this controls the volume in between fuzz 1 and fuzz 2. So it kind of acts similarly to the 1 control, but with its position, it actually gives you different tonal options. And what I mean by that is, in minimum positions, the lower settings, we're going to get a thinner sound, because this section of Part Garden actually has a bright cap on it. That means when we're at lower settings, we get less bass, and as we turn that control up, of course we're pushing the volume, but we're starting to hear less and less of that bright cap, so we get a fuller sound as well as a louder sound the more we turn this 2 control up. And as I've been testing the Part Garden and as I've been playing it and using it, what I like to do is think about the 2 control as kind of a body control, like the lower frequencies of the instrument that I'm playing can be governed with this control right here. So let's go ahead and set the 1 control, the pre-gain, to about 60%, and this is what it sounds like. You can hear, with that knob all the way down, you get a very articulate high end. Again, thanks to that bright cap. Now, as we push the control up, we're going to get a louder sound, so we're going to get more drive or breakup, saturation, whatever you want to call it, as well as more low end, because again, we're hearing less and less of that bright cap. So let's go ahead and just go through the range of this control. So again, the farther we push this 2 control up, we're getting more low end, and that's kind of how I like to think of the control, is governing my low end. That's not exactly what it does, but it kind of works together in conjunction with 1 to provide a lot of EQ shaping. And what I mean by that is, if we turn both controls down to about 25%, if I want to get a little bit more drive or a little bit more push, a stronger signal, as well as increasing kind of the top end, I'm going to go ahead and start pushing up the 1 control. So let's go ahead and play a little bit more, and then I'll push it up to about 50%, and we can hear kind of what that does to the high end as well as the overall signal. So right here we have a pretty bright signal, but a strong signal, a healthy signal. If we want to kind of fatten this tone up, especially if I'm playing on like the bridge pickup, it actually sounds really good. But let's say we want to thicken that sound up. What we can do is we can actually start to increase the 2 control. So that's given us a little bit more body, but let's say we kind of don't want as much gain, because as we turn this control up, we're getting more gain. What we can do is we can compensate by turning 1 down. So like we can turn it to about, what is that, 30% or so? So right there, we're getting a less gainy sound. So we're getting like a cleaner, more brilliant sound, but we're getting more of that like low end fundamental frequency that we want with the 2 control. So I wanted to demonstrate that because these 2 controls are very interactive, and depending on how you think of them, they can give you a lot of tonal ranges. Next, we're going to talk about the texture knob. Now, the texture knob can be thought of as kind of a gain knob, like an overall gain to the circuit. So what I mean is at lower settings, we're going to get that more chimey sound. Low gain, chimey, as all get out. I love it. But we can increase the texture to start to introduce more breakup, a smoother sound overall, because we're kind of compressing the dynamics. So let's go ahead and hear the range of the texture control. Right here, before we go any further, I like that sound, but I kind of want a little bit more low end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn down the 1 control a little bit and increase the 2 control. So now we have a little bit more bass. Okay, so this is what that sounds like with the texture control on 50%. Then we're going to go up. So right there, I was demonstrating another thing, which is how reactive the Part Garden Germanium is to your dynamics in your playing, as well as the volume control on your guitar. So right now I've got my guitar volume on about 25%, and this is as clean and sparkly as it gets. And now I can go from that clean sound all the way to a very overdriven sound just by turning my volume knob all the way up on my guitar. So that brings us to the yaw control. Now, yaw can be thought of kind of as an overdrive and fuzz toggle, because in the top position, we get a more overdriven sound, like a little less fuzzy. And then if we flip it to the down position or engage the yaw, we get a little more fuzzy. So let's go ahead and keep the settings all the same, play a riff, and then switch from the top, which is the stock overdrive setting, and then engage the yaw. And with yaw engaged, we have the same sort of operation of most of the controls, because texture kind of flips itself a little bit, and we actually don't get as much of a gain control as we do a gate control. So at minimum, we get a more open sound with the texture control in the yaw mode, and as we start to go up, we get a less open sound and a more clamped down sound. And then all the way up at the maximum settings, we start to get into that kind of like starved fuzz territory where you have to hit really hard to get any signal to pass through. So let's just go ahead and hear how it sounds. So at minimum, again, we're gonna get a little more open sound. So right here, I'm fine tuning where that cutoff frequency is. You can really hear it start to clamp down and take hold. And now we're starting to get less sustain and a more like starved fuzz gated texture. And then all the way at the top, you're barely getting any signal coming out of the pedal. So now I've got my Squier Classic Vibe Precision Bass plugged into the same chain, you know, same pedal, same amp, same settings. Here's a clean sound for the bass. Now let's hear how the Park Garden Germanium sounds on bass. Let's go ahead and start on the overdrive setting with the toggle. We're gonna do texture at minimum right now just to hear how it sounds when we set 1 and 2 at about 25%. Right off the bat, that's not a strong enough signal, so I'm gonna go ahead and pump 1 up to about 50%. We're starting to get there, but I actually want to increase 2 as well because I can tell that it's a thinner sound right now for a bass. That's a pretty cool chimey bass. It's got a little bit of grit in there. Let's go ahead and set the 1 to about 75%. Let's go ahead and increase 2 to give it a more rounded low end. That sounds awesome. That sounds sick. I want to keep the balance right there. Let's go ahead and hear what the texture control does. So I'm going to play a little bit and then I'm going to turn it up to probably 50%. So that sounds really cool. Let's go ahead and hear what the yeah mode sounds like. Again, I don't want a more gated sound, so I'm gonna keep the texture at minimum and just hear how it sounds off the bat. that sounds really cool. It's got a lot more like bite than the stock mode. Let's hear how it sounds when we just max out the one controller. I hope you dug this look at the Part Garden Germanium. If you did, please subscribe to the channel, and if you have other friends like us who are obsessed with fuzz, maybe share this video with them. If you want to learn more about the Part Garden, check the description below for a link to Mask Audio website. And I'm going to leave a link to the Collector Emitter YouTube channel. Ian over there has amazing videos. He does demos. His playing is awesome. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description as well. Again, check out the website for more information, or if you want to buy one of these pedals, pick one up for yourself. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you in the next one.